So it's one thing to learn a whole bunch of triad shapes, but it's a totally different thing to practice them in a way that actually connects them to something that you already know. So in this video, I'm going to show you one of the best ways to learn triads and actually apply them to the fretboard. But first, I want to really quickly let you know about the big update that I've done to my Patreon page. So I've got 3 new tiers. These are gold, platinum, and diamond. As a gold member, you're going to unlock the weekly YouTube lesson companion, which is a downloadable PDF that contains all of the tabs, chord charts, fretboard diagrams, and anything else important from each lesson that I put out on YouTube. It's a great way to just get more out of these lessons that I make here. You'll also be able to message back and forth with me over on Patreon. So if you have any questions you need answering, you'll be able to do that over there. And lastly, you'll also get a 20% discount on all of the courses and products I put out. As a platinum member, you'll be getting all of the gold perks as well as 2 brand new things. The first of those is a weekly Q&A video. And then the second thing is a monthly backing track that's also going to come with a written and video guide for how to play along to that track. Then for the diamond tier, you'll obviously get all of the gold and the platinum perks, but then you'll also be able to submit videos directly to me for feedback, and you'll also get your name in the credits of every YouTube video. So if you want to help support the channel and unlock some new perks, there will be a link at the top of the description. So a triad is just a group of 3 notes, and triads serve as the foundation for just about every chord that we play on the guitar. Now a triad isn't any group of 3 notes. It's got to contain a root, a third, and a fifth. And these just refer to intervals, so distances from one note to the next. Now, we've got 4 different types of triads. These are major triad, minor triad, diminished triad, and augmented triad. So a major triad consists of a root, a major third, and a perfect fifth. A minor triad consists of a root, a minor third, and a perfect fifth. A diminished triad consists of a root, a minor third, and a flat fifth. And then an augmented triad consists of a root, a major third, and a sharp fifth. Now to give you a very quick example, if we played these 3 notes right here, we would have a G major triad because we have our root, which is a G note, then we have our major third, and then we have our perfect fifth. That is a G major triad. Now we can make that a G minor triad by using a minor third instead. So now we've got our root, our minor third, and our perfect fifth. Now for the diminished triad, we could lower our fifth so that we have a flat fifth. Right there. Our G diminished triad. And then for our augmented triad, we'd have to go back to the major third, so root, major third, and then we've got our sharp fifth right there. So that is a G augmented triad. Now we need to learn a new term, and that term is inversion. Now it sounds a lot scarier than it actually is, but when we go back to that triad shape that we were playing, the lowest note in the shape was the root. This one right here, that note was the root of this triad. Well, if we were to play a triad where the lowest note of the triad was the third or the fifth, that would be called an inversion. So when we have the third as the lowest note in the little shape that we play, that would be first inversion. And if we had the fifth as the lowest note in the little triad shape we play, that would be a second inversion triad. Now to give you an example, this shape that we've been playing right here actually just lives inside of a regular G major bar chord. And when you play a full G major chord, you're only playing notes from the G major triad. They're just all the same notes repeating, right? So we only actually technically have 3 notes. So when I play these 3 notes inside, that's our G major triad, right? Well, I can also play all 3 notes starting on the third and adding my root on the top. This would be a first inversion, right? So that little shape right there, that's first inversion. Go back to the original one. A regular G major triad. Now I could also have the fifth as the lowest note in the chord by going down the shape even more and playing that one right there, because now we've got fifth, root, and third, major third specifically. So this would be a second inversion triad. Okay, that's all the boring theory stuff out of the way. Now it's time to actually learn some triad shapes and start practicing them. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use triads to play every single diatonic chord inside of a key. So if you know some basic music theory, you're gonna know that every key comes from its corresponding major scale. So for example, the key of G major just comes from the G major scale, and then we apply the major minor formula to get all of the chords in that key. So in the case of G major, we've got G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna learn how to play all of these chords as triads moving horizontally up the fretboard. And we're gonna do this using one basic shape that will modify to fit all three types of triads. Obviously, there is no diatonic augmented triad here, so we're only gonna be doing a major triad shape, a minor triad shape, and then a diminished triad shape. So let's go to our G major chord. Now, I'm gonna play it as a bar chord here like this. This is just a G major bar chord using an E shape. And the triad shape we're gonna learn is actually going to be an inversion, specifically a second inversion triad shape. And the reason for this is because to play this triad shape, all we have to do is remove the bar, just like that. And just by removing the bar and only playing those three notes, we've now got a G major triad. And yes, it's second inversion, but that doesn't matter. It's a G major triad, right? Very easy to remember. And what I like so much about this triad shape is that you can always think of it and visualize it as the full major bar chord shape, which makes it very easy to kind of remember. So I like to think of this as like a navigation note. Now to make this a minor triad, we just have to lower the third, right? Because we have to go from a major third down to a minor third. And so we lower our third right here. Just like that, we've got a G minor triad. And again, you can think of this as your navigation note because that's a G. So now I know that this is a G minor triad. Played a full G minor bar chord like that, right? And again, this is also second inversion because the fifth is my lowest note in the shape. Now, for our last shape, we want to go to a diminished triad, right? So to do that, we just have to lower our fifth. So the minor third stays the same, we're just lowering our fifth, which is our lowest note here. So let's lower it by 1 fret. That right there is gonna give us our diminished triad. But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use these shapes to play up all of the chords in this key of G major. So let's go back to our one chord, which is gonna be G major, right? And that is just that right there. Then we go to our 2 chord, which is an A minor. So we have to now slide this horizontally up the fretboard, 2 frets. Okay, again, think of if it was a full bar chord, where my navigation note would be, right? But we're only looking at it as a triad like that. Then we can go to our 3 chord, which is a B minor. So it's the exact same triad shape here, but up 2 more frets. That as my navigation note down on the low E string. Then we go back to major. The next chord is a C major. That's our 4 chord. So C major, we're only going up the 1 fret and we're making it the major shape like that. Then our 5 is a D major, going up 2 frets here. Again, using that low E as my way of knowing what my actual root is. So I know this is a D because that note, if this were a bar chord, would be a D note. And then we keep going. We've got our 6 chord, which is an E minor. So there's our little minor shaped triad. Now we've gone up so far at this point that if you're on an acoustic guitar or it's just uncomfortable for you, you can actually go all the way back down to keep going, right? Because once you reach the 12th fret, it just repeats. So we could also play this as those 3 notes down there if we wanted to. And then for our very last chord, our 7 chord, we have that F sharp diminished. So we need to do a diminished triad shape. So that one's gonna look like this, right? And if I wanted to play it all the way down here, I could. Before I return to my G, my 1, right? So, or if I was playing it all the way up, Now the goal here and what you want to practice is climbing through the scale or the key using these triad shapes. So that would look something like this. Now it's going to take you some time to kind of get it up, and you don't have to play it crazy fast, but it would look like this. So that's the key of G major. Now you could play in any other key by simply shifting that up or down the fretboard. The actual shapes don't change, and the distances between the chord shapes, they don't change at all. But what I want to show you next is how to do this with the A shape bar chords as well. So we can do this with a totally new key. We can do this with the key of C major. And based on the major minor formula and what we know about scales and keys, the key of C major comes from the C major scale, so C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. There are no sharps or flats in this key. Then we apply the major minor formula, and the chords that we're left with are C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. So let's start from that one chord, the C major chord, and we're gonna do this all based on an A shape bar chord. So this one right here. And our triad shape is just removing the bar. That's why I like these shapes so much. And even though they're inversions, which make them sound more complicated than they are, they're really easy to remember because it's just the bar chord and then taking the bar off, right? And once again, this is gonna give us a second inversion triad shape. Because we've got our fifth, we've got our root, and then we've got our third. In this case, it is a major third. Now, to turn this into a minor triad shape, once again, second inversion, we just have to lower that major third to a minor third. So we just get this. That right there would be a C minor triad, right? And that would make sense if we played the full C minor chord and we just played the little triad, took the bar off. Right? Again, very easy to remember. Our navigation note and how we know this is a C is based on remembering kind of like a ghost as if it was there, right? Even though we're not playing it, is that C, would give us the C right there. And then for our last chord shape, we've got to make this a diminished triad. And to do that, all we have to do is lower that fifth, so get a flat fifth. So our fifth is our note right there. We just lower it by 1. And now we get a diminished triad. Now we're going to do the exact same thing and climb horizontally through all of the chords in C major using these new triad shapes. So let's start with our one chord, C major. Then we go up to D minor. Then we've got E minor. Next up, we've got F major. For this one, we're only moving 1 fret. Remember, navigation note is now on the A string. That would make it an F, right? Major. Then we've got G major for 5. Now, next up, we've got our A minor. That's our 6. All the way up there. And again, you can go down if you want. And just play that triad shape all the way down there if you want, but I'm gonna stay up here for now. Then we've got our very last one, which is going to be our diminished shape right there, right? B diminished. Before we resolve all the way up here on our C major triad, our one chord, just like that. I'm barring it. It's kind of hard to fit all your fingers into that fret, but if you're going all the way back down here, right, you can do that there. There's our 7 to our 1, just like that. And again, your goal would be to play through the entire scale or key using these triad shapes seamlessly. So it sounds something like this. So now you've got 2 solid exercises for working on your triad shapes, and you can feel free to move these into other keys and work on those as well. As far as next steps, I've got a great lesson that's gonna help you learn to navigate your fretboard even further. So if you wanna check that out, I'm gonna put that up in the middle of the screen for you now. Don't forget to check out all the new stuff over on my Patreon. There'll be a link to that at the top of the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.